At 05:17 hours on October 27, 2025, the USS Gravely became the tip of America's spear in hostile waters, and what happened next would prove why the U.S. Navy remains the most professional fighting force the world has ever known. 14 nautical miles off the Venezuelan coast, the 9,200-ton Arleigh Burke-class destroyer was conducting Operation Caribbean Shield, part of U.S. Southern Command's relentless campaign against narco-trafficking networks. The $1.8 billion warship, bristling with 96 vertical launch cells and the most advanced Aegis combat system ever deployed, had just completed a high-visibility port call in Trinidad, a calculated message to the Maduro regime that American naval power could reach Venezuela's doorstep in minutes, not hours. The bridge logged a sudden surge of activity, multiple surface contacts materializing at bearing 090, 12 nautical miles distant and accelerating toward the ship Petty Officer Martinez, working the ANSPY-1D array, identified 3 vessels holding a V formation at a steady 28 knots. Commander Gregory J. Piorun, commanding officer of the Gravely, stepped to the bridge wing with his binoculars. Through the pre-dawn darkness, he could make out the distinctive silhouettes of Venezuelan patrol boats, likely Guaycamacuto-class vessels armed with 76mm guns and anti-ship missiles. The formation alone ruled out any chance of civilian traffic. Their advance was purposeful, controlled, and unmistakably provocative. The tension had been building for weeks. Just days earlier, U.S. forces had intercepted 3 Venezuelan boats suspected of running drugs for the Cartel de los Soles, the narco-trafficking network reportedly embedded within Venezuela's military hierarchy. Intelligence suggested this morning's encounter was Caracas's response, a test of American resolve in international waters. The Cartel de los Soles, named for the sun insignia worn by Venezuelan generals, represented a $20 billion annual narcotics empire that had corrupted Venezuela's military from top to bottom. U.S. intelligence had documented how high-ranking Venezuelan officers provided protection, transportation, and logistics for Colombian cocaine shipments destined for American cities. The recent interdictions had netted 2.3 tons of pure cocaine and captured detailed communications proving direct military involvement in the trafficking operations. This wasn't Venezuela's first provocation. Over the past 6 months, Venezuelan patrol boats had conducted increasingly aggressive maneuvers against U.S. and allied vessels. They had buzzed a Colombian Coast Guard cutter, forced a Dutch naval vessel to alter course, and conducted mock attack runs against a Panamanian-flagged cargo ship suspected of carrying DEA intelligence assets. Each incident pushed the boundaries further, testing whether the United States would respond with force or restraint. The USS Gravely's mission represented the cornerstone of U.S. Southern Command's Caribbean strategy, maintaining freedom of navigation while disrupting the maritime drug corridors that funneled narcotics from South America to North American markets. Every patrol sent an unmistakable message. American naval power could project force anywhere in the Western Hemisphere, and no regime would be allowed to turn the Caribbean into a narco-trafficking highway. Commander Piorun moved without hesitation. He directed combat to mark the approaching vessels as Romeo 1 through Romeo 3, then ordered the ship to Condition 3 across the USS Gravely. Every station shifted instantly into heightened readiness. This was no drill. Throughout the destroyer's steel corridors, 320 American sailors moved with practiced precision. In Combat Information Center, Fire Controlman First Class Rodriguez powered up the ship's weapon systems. The 5-inch Mark 45 gun capable of firing 20 rounds per minute, the Phalanx close-in weapon systems with their 4,500 round per minute Gatling guns, and the vertical launch cells loaded with $4.2 million SM-6 missiles. The tactical action officer relayed the latest update. The Romeo contacts had closed to 8 nautical miles, still holding course and speed. With their approach unchanged, the recommendation was clear: deploy the aircraft for overwatch. Within minutes, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter thundered off the Gravely's flight deck, its crew manning a .50 caliber machine gun and advanced sensors. The $43 million aircraft took station 2,000 feet above the destroyer, providing eyes-on intelligence as the Venezuelan boats continued their aggressive approach. A formal hailing transmission went out from the bridge, directed at the Venezuelan naval vessels closing from bearing 270. The message was clear and by the book. They were approaching a U.S. Navy warship operating lawfully in international waters and were advised to keep a safe distance and declare their intentions. Silence. The lead Venezuelan boat, Romeo 1, continued closing, now at 6.2 nautical miles. Through the Gravely's advanced optics, Commander Piorun could see sailors manning deck guns and what appeared to be shoulder-fired missiles. Their actions followed no profile of simple harassment. They moved with the cold precision of a force probing the limits of U.S. patience and power. The Venezuelan formation was textbook aggressive. Romeo 1 maintained the lead position, while Romeo 2 and Romeo 3 spread to flanking positions, creating overlapping fields of fire that could bracket the American destroyer. Through the ship's electro-optical sensors, the Gravely's crew could identify 76mm Otto Malara guns trained in their direction, along with what appeared to be Chinese-made C-802 anti-ship missiles mounted on rotating launchers. Each Venezuelan boat displaced roughly 170 tons and could achieve speeds exceeding 35 knots, fast enough to close distance rapidly or execute high-speed attack runs. The sound signature told its own story. The deep thrumming of the Gravely's gas turbine engines provided a steady bass note, punctuated by the higher-pitched whine of the Venezuelan boat's diesel engines pushing their hulls through increasingly choppy seas. In Combat Information Center, the rhythmic ping of active sonar mixed with the electronic chirping of radar systems cycling through their search patterns. The air itself seemed to vibrate with electromagnetic energy as multiple fire control radars painted targets and calculated firing solutions. Technical systems throughout the destroyer hummed to life with lethal precision. The Mark 99 fire control system began tracking all 3 Venezuelan contacts, its computers calculating lead angles and time to target for the ship's 5-inch gun. Deep in the ship's magazine spaces, automated systems rotated high-explosive rounds into firing position. The ship's phalanx close-in weapon system swiveled on their mounts, their 20mm Gatling guns capable of spitting out depleted uranium rounds at a rate that could shred incoming missiles or small boats in seconds. Most ominously, the vertical launch cells containing Standard missiles began their pre-firing sequences, each $4.2 million weapon capable of reaching any of the Venezuelan boats in under 2 minutes with a 137-pound blast fragmentation warhead. Orders moved quickly from the bridge to combat. Maintain tracking solutions, hold fire, and watch the closing range. The moment any contact slipped within 4 nautical miles, protocol would classify it as a hostile action. In the ship's Combat Information Center, the Aegis system painted a perfect tactical picture. The AN/SPY-1D radar, capable of tracking over 100 targets simultaneously, maintained lock on all 3 Venezuelan vessels while simultaneously monitoring the airspace for potential threats. The system's computer calculated firing solutions in real time. If Commander Piorun gave the order, a $1.6 million Standard missile could reach any of the Venezuelan boats in under 90 seconds. The tactical coordinator delivered the latest update. Romeo 1 had closed to 5 nautical miles, with Romeo 2 and Romeo 3 still holding tight on its flanks. There was still no response to any of the ship's hails. The tension was palpable. In international waters, the Gravely had every right to defend herself, but any miscalculation could trigger an international incident. Commander Piorun knew that 320 American lives depended on his next decision, and that the eyes of the world were watching. A calm but forceful announcement moved through the ship's comms network. Commander Piorun briefed the crew on the Venezuelan vessel's escalating maneuvers and made it clear the U.S. warship would hold steady. No deviation, no hesitation. The message was unmistakable. Stay sharp, stay disciplined, and uphold the standard of the world's premier naval force. At 4.6 nautical miles, the Venezuelan boats suddenly altered course. A new update reached the bridge. The Romeo contacts had shifted to bearing 090, their speed dropping to 15 knots. The change in posture was unmistakable. They were pulling back. For 17 minutes, one of the most capable destroyers ever put to sea by the U.S. Navy had faced down 3 Venezuelan patrol boats in a test of wills that could have escalated into the first naval engagement between American and Venezuelan forces. The professional competence of Commander Piorun and his crew had diffused a potentially explosive situation without firing a shot, but with the unmistakable message that American naval power would not be challenged. Commander Piorun directed combat to continue tracking the Romeo contacts until they cleared 20 nautical miles. At the same time, he called for a secure line to Southcom. This incident needed immediate reporting. As dawn broke over the Caribbean, the USS Gravely continued her patrol, her crew having demonstrated once again why American steel and American courage remain the guardians of freedom on the world's oceans. The Venezuelan boats had tested American resolve and found it unshakable, a lesson that would resonate from Caracas to every capital where adversaries might question America's commitment to defending international law. Later in the wardroom, Commander Piorun walked his officers through the sequence of events. The timeline captured it. 17 intense minutes where training, composure, and flawless execution kept a dangerous encounter from spiraling. It was a reminder of their purpose and the standard they upheld. The implications of this Caribbean standoff extended far beyond Venezuelan waters. Intelligence analysts at U.S. Southern Command immediately recognized the encounter as part of a broader pattern of authoritarian regimes testing American resolve in their respective regions. Just as Chinese vessels harassed U.S. Navy ships in the South China Sea and Iranian fast boats swarmed American destroyers in the Persian Gulf, Venezuela's maritime provocations represented another front in the global competition between democratic values and authoritarian aggression. Within hours, detailed intelligence from the encounter was shared with allied navies throughout the Caribbean and Latin America. The Colombian Navy, which had lost 3 sailors to Venezuelan aggression the previous year, received tactical analysis of Venezuelan boat formations and weapons capabilities. The Dutch and French navies, responsible for protecting their Caribbean territories, gained valuable insights into Venezuelan naval tactics and rules of engagement. The strategic message resonated in capitals from Beijing to Tehran. American naval power remained unmatched, and American resolve remained unshakable. When authoritarian regimes tested the boundaries of international law, they found themselves facing the most professional and capable navy in human history. The USS Gravely's crew had demonstrated that American sailors could de-escalate tensions without compromising strength, a lesson in professional competence that would influence maritime encounters worldwide. Most importantly, the incident reinforced America's commitment to freedom of navigation in international waters. Every drug shipment interdicted, every trafficking network disrupted, and every authoritarian provocation answered with measured strength sent an unmistakable message. The Caribbean would remain a highway for legitimate commerce, not a corridor for criminal enterprises. The message was clear. In an era of gray zone warfare and hybrid threats, the U.S. Navy's forward presence remains America's first line of defense. When narco-traffickers and their state sponsors test American resolve, they find 9,200 tons of American steel crewed by the most professional sailors on Earth. Their watch continues in the Caribbean. Will you stand with them? If you believe American naval power should patrol every ocean where freedom is threatened, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Stand Watch with the finest Navy the world has ever known.